Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here at today's Hawaii Correctional System Oversight Commission monthly meeting. Sorry for the delay. Guess there was some action at the Pali yesterday for the storm, and so I didn't realize the tunnel was shut, so I had to enjoy a ride to the stadium. And then come back to Honolulu. So that's my excuse for today. So just bear with me as I try to settle in, and so we can start this meeting today. As I was driving, since I had a little bit more drive this morning, I began to think that this is the 5th holiday season since the commission was founded in 2019, so 1921 to 2023. So this is our fifth holiday season. And I'm glad that it's raining a lot because, we need to be really cleansed and wash away a lot of what has happened in 23 so that we can prepare ourselves for 24. We have a lot of work ahead of ourselves, but it's really good now that we're at the end of the year to talk about, where we've come from, what are we like today, and where are we going? And in doing that, we may change up on a few things, but I did want to talk about real quick before we get into and move on in the agenda, and then I'll call it to order. It's really uplifting. Hawaii is one of those rare, if not the only state that has an aloha statute, as you all know. And the aloha statute, it's really about how we treat each other. And I know that a lot of the government employees are supposed to be bound by the aloha statute in the manner of which they do business with the community, as well as within their agencies or within agencies, in treating each other with aloha and love and compassion, so that the work that we do can be done as a community, moving in this positive direction. And so as we move in that, as we talk about that, it's really how we treat each other and how we manage our meetings, to understand that one of our main mandates is to move from a punitive model to a therapeutic model. And in one of those best examples we can do in order to portray that is how we run our meetings. This is a safe space for everyone to be here to talk about the issues regarding public safety. And I want that to be stated, that it is the intention of the commission that we have a safe space so that concerns and passion can be shared. With that being said, we've developed a clock that can be seen on the Zoom. We're gonna have 2 specific changes I'm gonna talk to you about real quick. In our first public testimony, we want you folks who are on or here present to really look at just agenda items. We'll give you 3 minutes to speak or present your testimony. We ask that every testimony be written out so that we can have it and post it and follow up with it. We're mostly listening to what the concerns are at this time, but I'm gonna hold you to those 3 minutes, and I'm gonna hold you to the agenda items, okay? On the second testimony period, after the meeting, the commissioners' meeting, when we open up the public testimony, any issue that you may have can be brought up at that time. And again, we're gonna hold everyone to a 3-minute conversation. So with that being said, if I cut you off or I say time, that's gonna be something that we hold everybody accountable for, as well as staying in line with the testimonies of what's on the agenda and anything else at the end. With that being said, I call this meeting to order. Do a roll call real quick. Ronald Ibarra.
Here, present.
Mike Town.
Here.
Martha Toney.
Present.
Mark Patterson here. And that's it for now, everybody. As you folks know, Ted Sakai has officially resigned, but we'll talk more about that a little later in the meeting. With everybody being present, I'll take a motion to pass and approve the minutes of the November 16th, 2023 meeting.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved by Mike Town and seconded by Ronald Ibarra that we accept the minutes of the November 16th, 2023 meeting. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. Abstain. Motion passed. Thank you, everyone. At this time, we will move into public testimony of 3 minutes on agenda items. If you can signify by raising your hands, then I'll call upon you. Bob? Morning, Bob.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'd just like to say that I'm deeply saddened by Ted's resignation. I think he's been such a huge asset to the Oversight Commission. His report, I think it was October of last year, about conditions at HCCC was very powerful and very meaningful and very much needed. And, you know, he did so much during COVID, working with Martha to help us understand what's going on at the various facilities. And, you know, he really can't be replaced. He brought all the skill and knowledge that he gathered through the years to bear on the commission. And we're really going to miss him. I'm really sorry that he's leaving, and I just want to wish him the best. Thank you. Oh, Mark, one other thing, it's not exactly an agenda item, but you just mentioned the Aloha Spirit statute. For those who don't know, Todd Edens, in a recent Supreme Court opinion, cited the Aloha Spirit statute in full, and it got national attention. And on a very important podcast called Strict Scrutiny, where they talk about the Supreme Court, he said, and they quoted him as saying the Supreme Court could use a little bit of the Aloha spirit.
What's that?
No, I have.
So thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Tommy, can you put yourself on mute? Thank you, Bob. Anyone else? Hi, Kat. Good morning.
Good morning, commissioners and community. Kat Brady for Community Alliance on Prisons. I want to echo what Bob said about Ted. It is a loss. And actually, the last bill that Ted worked on is a bill on solitary confinement. And we worked together on that. And I'm hopeful that that bill will get a hearing and we'll be able to actually discuss that. The second thing I'd like to bring up is that it is absolutely crucial for the community to stand up to the legislature and demand that the commission be fully funded in order for them to do their job. So we really support the commission, and we hope that everybody in the community who actually helped to stand this commission up in 2019, we really hope that you stand up and support their work.
Yeah.
Hold on one moment. Yeah.
Thank you, Kat. Appreciate your words.
Tommy, you still need to mute. Tommy,
One-
we can hear your conversations. Thank you.
George, is there a way we can get the full Zoom? Oh, hi, Carrie Ann. Just saw you there. Thank you.
Aloha, well, good morning, commissioners and oversight coordinator, community. Carrie Ann Chirota on behalf of the ACLU Hawaii. I also want to thank Commissioner Ted Sakai for his contributions to the Oversight Commission and to all of you for your continuing work. A few items that I'd like to highlight in terms of the agenda. There's legislative priorities, and I'm not sure if you meant the priorities only that the commission is going to be focusing on, but also hearing from the community what priorities will be moving forward. So I just would like to briefly highlight, and I can submit things in writing at a later date. But for ACLU of Hawaii, some measures that I think are in alignment with the mission. One relates to clean slate. There will be a very broad clean slate bill that's being introduced. There's also a narrower clean slate being introduced to essentially expunge and state-initiated process for cannabis-related convictions. Cannabis legalization is also on the table, and we're supporting that measure that we not criminalize people for using cannabis. But in addition to that, having social equity provisions people who have been harmed by the war on cannabis, that they have opportunities within the industry, that we tax and regulate it, and that we also have robust expungement and resentencing provisions so that when it's legalized, that we are not continuing to punish the people in the past. Pretrial fairness is also going to be measures that are introduced. Last year, there was an omnibus bill looking at the front end of the system where police officers can issue citations instead of arrests. That would help to divert the number of people that are going into our overcrowded jails, as well as others, shifting the presumption, the burden to the prosecution to detain a person, which should be the least restrictive option and rarely used. I think that's, again, something in alignment with the commission. And there are some other ones, but those are the three main ones at this point that I'd like to highlight. And shifting to the Oversight Commission's jurisdiction, I'm just wondering in terms of clarity, I remember in the very beginning when the commission started meeting, there had been a report about capacity limits for each correctional facility. And I'm wondering if that original report is still current and what measures are being taken to ensure that we do not go over those inmate population limits, particularly on the jails that have been severely overcrowded. And I think that that relates to the fact that we continue to have some prisons and jails are separate, but yet some of the prisons have undercount, and those are the prisons that have the most robust rehabilitation programs. And so why are we sending people out of state to a private prison when Kulani has an undercount as well as Waiava? We should be bringing people home, connecting them with Ohana and community resources. That is definitely a best practice. And just finally, well, maybe two more real quick. I'm hearing from attorneys still that there are challenges in reaching out to.
That's time, Clarion. Can you say before after the meeting? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else for public testimony? Yeah. Seeing none, let's go on and move on with the our rest of the agenda. Carry on real quick. Make sure you submit that in writing for us, yeah, so we can take a closer look at that. Appreciate that on the measures.
Will do. Thank you.
So real quick, as we mentioned earlier, the resignation of Ted Sakai has come to us, and again, we're very. It's a big loss for us, as he was, one of the main journey of and knowledge of public safety is so deep and wide. I'm gonna take this time, commissioners, to each of you, if you want to say a word on behalf of Ted, and I'll just close out. Mike?
I'll pass it right now.
Okay.
Well, I worked with Ted for over 40 years. And as I said in a statement, I don't know of anybody who is more knowledgeable and more committed to corrections than Ted Sakai. And in his commitment to corrections, rehabilitation was always on the fore with him. He took care of everything. He knew how to build facilities. He knew what we needed for training staff. But he understood that to really protect the community in the long run, rehabilitative programs are necessary. And we need to see more of that be introduced. Ted has been a gift to us, and I will miss him greatly.
Ronald?
Ted brought a lot of knowledge to this commission. Without Ted, this commission would be without any information as to how public safety operates, and certainly a commission that oversees an entity needs to have knowledge of how the entity operates before it can make recommendations or suggestions to improve the system. Ted was very involved in trying to turn the punitive system into a rehabilitative system. I've known Ted many years while I was on the bench, and he was always responsive when we had problems in the Third Circuit regarding public safety. We're going to miss Ted. I see him as a very good person, and his heart is in the right place. And for me, that's a big plus, and we're gonna miss him.
Martha?
I just wanted to add that when Ted started with the department, he had already been working with the John Howard Association and working with offenders through that organization. But he started the department in 1979, and at that time, we had less than 1,000 inmates in the state of Hawaii. I started in 77, and there were only 700 inmates. So I'm not quite sure how many were there in 79. So Ted was with us through this awful growth period, oversaw the consent decree at OCCC that went on from 84 for about 12 years after that, and brought in some wonderful people to work with us. And again, I appreciate that very much. One of the most significant areas was improving our medical services through Kim Thorburn, who came in as a result of the consent decree. And it's very hard for me to put into words what the contributions that Ted Sakai has made to this system. Thank you.
Sure. I've known Ted 20, 30, maybe 40 years. He was boots on the ground, and he was compassion writ large. And I hope that the new appointee will be equally the same, boots on the ground and compassion. And we wish him well. Thank you.
Probably when I started in corrections in the late 80s. But when I started, I was hired by the Department of Social Service and Housing, right? And corrections was a division of the Department of Social Service and Housing, which was the predecessor to the Department of Human Services. And I believe Ted was the division
He
administrator.
became the division
He became the
administrator
division
in
administrator.
84, I think.
So since the 80s, he'd been running all that's all the prisons came under him. And so I always remembered him as a, very, very personable. Always came up to us officers when we were on the line, shake our hands, talk to us, ask us what's going on, very friendly. I was lucky in my career, that every now and then I would touch bases with him because he was so high, I was so low. Well, eventually when I became a warden, it was Ted Sakai that brought me to a national level. He was well known throughout the nation as the warden from Hawaii. And when we used to go to the American Correctional Association conferences, and Ted found out I was there, he would take me around and introduce me to all the wardens from all the different states and all the major players. And so I look up to him at that point, since I did work for him as a warden probably about 10, 12 years ago. And so he is one of those I see as a mentor, learned a lot under him, and was very successful. So Ted, we're gonna miss you. Yeah, we're gonna be keep our prayers and blessings to you and your family during this holiday season. We created this gift for you from the commissioners and the staff of a paddle. And I'll just briefly say, it says Commissioner Ted Sakai, Founding Commissioner, Hawaii Correctional System Oversight Commission, for your unwavering commitment to the people of Hawaii and dedication to transforming Hawaii's correctional system. So we made this paddle. Yeah. Kristen's gonna bring it a little bit closer, just so every time you look at it, you can remember of the journey of where you came from and the journey that you have now, and you're moving forward. And here's the paddle for you to steer and remind you of all the lives that you steered as well.
Is Ted looking to me?
No,
Thank you.
I haven't seen this.
Did you want to say something?
I'll just very briefly say that when I first came on board, Ted very much took me under his wing. I told him that I wanted to go to all the facilities, and he was the first commissioner to say, when are we going? So, I really, really appreciate his mentorship and his guidance, especially being so new to Hawaii. And he will be very, very, very missed. It was an honor to work with him for the time that I got to.
So thank you, Ted, and good luck to you and your family. As we move on, morning, Tommy. the update from you at this time?
Yep, sorry, I had muted myself, so I didn't want you guys to hear the background noise here going on. Okay, so with respect to the update for the transition and to the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. So all law enforcement is about at the tail end of transitioning over. That would be the Sheriff's Division, Narcotics Enforcement, and our Criminal Internal Affairs Investigation Unit. Most of the sheriffs are out of this building now. We still have some people located on 4th floor, but they'll be moving before the end of the year. Internal Affairs will probably stay a little bit longer because their space is not ready yet. We started rebadging all of the vehicles. Every ACO will get 2 new shirts completely patched and badged up with the new logo and the badge, and then they will use their uniform allowance to get the rest of the uniforms up to speed. We're about 95% done with all the policies and procedures to get them transferred over. Kristen and I still have an outstanding issue on the confidential policies. I'll be talking to her after the meeting today. Let's see, with that, that's about it on the transition side, unless you have some specific questions. With respect to the new jail OCCC, there's no change yet. An RFI should be issued maybe next spring, with an RFP to follow in the fall. We are still working with UH and doing the report out from the symposium, so we're still gathering some information for the planning and design for that. As you know, we requested $15 million last year for continue the planning and design and for construction management of the project. We didn't get that. I'd asked the governor for $10 million in lieu of the 15 that we didn't get. He initially agreed to release 7.5 million, but in speaking with Susan Hurd, the director of DLNR, she had been requesting money for planning and design to move the animal quarantine site south. Since she didn't get the funding, I asked the governor to reconsider my request and only release $4 million to me, and Sharon requested release of the 3.5. She got the release of the 3.5 million. We received release of the $4 million, who will continue on with the planning and design for the OCCC. Let me look down the list and see if there's something else here.
Amazing.
We do have some other initiatives I'd like to bring you guys up to speed on, if that's okay, Mark.
Let me ask one question. Can I ask you a question real quick?
Sure, go ahead.
Tommy, internal affairs is such an important part of public safety's ability to investigate the higher levels of violations in our correctional system. Will if they're moving to law enforcement, will there still be a relationship?
Well, yes and no. We received a complete new set of positions for the internal affairs unit. We're currently recruiting to fill those positions, but they will do administrative investigations, not criminal investigations. And in their work, if an administrative investigation turns criminal, then in talking to Jordan Lowe, the director of DLE, they will take over those investigations from us. So DLE will do all criminal investigations moving forward.
Yeah. But Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation will have an administrative investigative body.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And it'll be the same staff complement. 1 investigator 6, 3 investigator 5s, 1 secretary.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom.
Welcome. One thing we should note with the current OCCC and WCCC is that, as you know, we're doing major construction at WCCC, a new administration building, new visitation building, new dormitory. When the new dormitory is done, which should be around February, hopefully we'll take over it soon thereafter. All the female offenders who are currently at OCCC will move to WCCC. WCCC will become this hybrid prison jail where they'll do all intake female offenders for Oahu. They will also house all of that's pre-sentence, sentence misdemeanors. They will also house the sentenced felons, and we'll also have, of course, the work furlough program out of WCCC. What that will mean is the 130-something female inmates will move over to WCCC. That will free up an entire module at OCCC so that we can spread the male inmates out some, so that we will be hopefully better able to manage that population, and they won't be on top of each other as much.
Tony,
Okay,
go ahead, I'll ask after you.
Tommy, I want to ask a question.
sure.
I know that you were not involved with the planning of the new buildings at the women's facility, but I would tell you, I was really taken aback that a new kitchen was not planned when we were expanding the population, because the current kitchen is in such bad condition, but also not the right size for an expanded capacity. So as you move forward, I hope at some point you're able to get funds to build a new kitchen for that facility.
Martha, we did get, you're correct, that it should have been included in the original request. My understanding from speaking to the CIP staff is that the former director, Nolan Spender, may he rest in peace, that he believed that the ask would have been too high if he added that in then, but I still think they should have. So we did go in and request the funding. We do have the money for the planning and design for not just the upgrade of the kitchen, but also the laundry services, because we're moving those inmates over from OCCC. And so we do have a contingency plan in place when we do the bridge kitchen, if you will, while the major construction's underway. So we are moving in that direction.
Thank you.
Tommy, will there be an opportunity, now that we have the new jail being built for the women in Kailua? Will there be opportunities for the neighbor islands to relieve their overcrowding of their female population and use Kailua as a means of housing?
We can, particularly for HCCC. We just have to be cognizant of the court dates, because right now at HCCC, you know, we're using non-conventional spaces to house the female offenders, which is unacceptable. So we will be working with Nani, the warden of WCCC, to ship as many of the female offenders we can here. We already do ship the sentenced felons here and the sentenced felony probationers that are returned, and once they're adjudicated by the court, if the court gives them more than 90 days, we're shipping them to Halava for the interim so that we can relieve some of the bed space on the neighbor islands.
That's men.
That's men, but
yeah,
with the women offenders, we will work with Nani to move the women offenders as well, the female offenders.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioners, any other questions for Tommy Johnson?
Oh, he might have had more to add.
Oh, you want, yeah, Tommy, you want to add more?
Yeah, just a couple of things real quick. We have a couple of initiatives that we're starting, but first I wanted to say that my absence at the meetings had nothing to do with my relationship with the commission itself. Christian and I work closely, as I do with Mark. I just wanted the commissioners and the public to know that. And so I'm back now, and I appreciate Mark's comments about the role running the meetings in a tone and tenor. So I appreciate that. I want the commission and the public to know that I want to work with the commission. In fact, of the 55 recommendations that the commission made to PSD, we have instituted the vast majority of them, and we're still working on others, but we still have ways to go, to be perfectly frank. And so we'll continue plodding along as best we can. There are a couple of initiatives I wanted to mention real quick. We also have major construction at HCCC. As you know, we had asked for 96 dorms, 96 beds, we got 48. That dorm is almost complete. I was there on the Big Island early this week with Senator Wakai and Senator Elefante and took them through that dormitory and showed them the major construction that's going on. So that's coming along. We hope to have that dorm ready to go sometime in April. And at that point, they will help us relieve some of the overcrowding at the HCCC. We also have funding to do the initial planning to relocate KCCC, so that's in the works. We have funding in the budget we asked for to do a couple of things. One was to add on to the medical and mental health services at Halava. So the $45 million we asked for is in the governor's budget. We asked for $18 million to replace the funding around Halava because, as you know, the place opened in 1985, I think, or 87. And so now the funding is eroded. We do have $3.5 million in the budget, in the governor's budget, to replace the fending at the back of MCCC because it's all eroded because of the gulch back there. We will make an announcement in the next 30 days regarding a new deputy director for corrections, correctional institutions. That will be the new title of that position. And I think we have our last service awards ceremony on the 29th of this month. As the Department of Public Safety, we're going to recognize 10, 20, and 30-year employees at Washington Place. We've held our last graduations for law enforcement and correctional officers recruit classes for this year. We have new classes starting up next year, and our goal next year is to have 6 ACOR recruit classes to be done, some of them on the neighbor islands when it's fiscally feasible for us to do that. We lose some applicants on the neighbor islands that have young families that can't be gone for the 11 weeks. So when we have enough applicants on the neighbor islands, we will take the academy to that island, and we will do the academy there on the neighbor islands. And so we're working with UPW for use of some of their space, and the county for the use of space as needed and facility space where appropriate for the training. With that, that's all I have for the commission, unless you have some questions.
I don't need a report now, but I keep asking myself about amend, because we had a really good conference that Tommy helped coordinate. I think it was very successful. So later on, maybe we can hear about amend. Not necessarily now. Thank you.
Tommy, I know we can do some conversations after the commission meeting or whatnot, but however we can support you in your measures, let us know.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I'll be sitting down with you and Christian before the beginning of the legislative session. I can go over our budget request with you, what's in the budget. And because we did ask for about 96 million for different things. We got 89 million, and we did trade-offs with existing funding or resources for the other amount. So we actually fared out better than most, because I believe the governor believes in the critical important nature of public safety, and that we do need funding in order to improve the system as a whole, and we have a long way to go to get there.
Thank you, Tommy, for that report. Commissioners, any more questions for Tommy? Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you. I'll still be here listening.
Thank you. Legislative priorities is our next object on the agenda. I believe the governor's budget has been presented to the legislature. And as you folks know, or may not know, commissioners, that a lot of the priority is looking at how to rebuild Lahaina. Yeah. So a lot of the agencies, state agencies, have been told that, been really scrutinized on their budgets as the state tries to gather as much funds as they can to support the efforts on the island of Maui and the rebuilding of Lahaina, and rightfully so. And with that being said, we had submitted a budget.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I'm trying to get out of this.
That was my time limit, I think.
I'm trying to get to the comments, folks. Okay. I want to stay connected. We
So,
can't read the chat. from
Hawaii
here, so I
Correctional
gotta get
System
to
Oversight
you.
Commission had submitted a budget for $693,375. And a lot of that was to fund the current staff, as well as looking at 2 investigators, one for the jails and one for the prisons, so that we as a commission can improve on that aspect of our mandate that we haven't been doing well in, is following up with complaints and investigations. So that was our request. Once Budget and Finance went through it and went to the governor, that had been lowered to $462,134. So that will be the budget that we will be presenting, or the part of the governor's package, to the legislature, and what we will be advocating for during the hearings. Any questions, you folks, on the budget? This will be our #1 legislative priority. Is it safe to say that that was cut, mostly one position was cut? Kristen?
One position was cut, salaries were cut, our travel funding was cut in half, and most of our office equipment, or office supplies were cut in half.
Okay. Will this be made available online? Okay, all right. It's public. Any questions that you folks may have, you can always contact the office, so we can talk about the budget. We have put out an all call to people so that we can meet, and so that we can all become on, with our key partners and stakeholders who come to the meeting, want to meet with them, commissioners, so that we can, be on the same page in terms of, messaging and bullet points on, the needs of the commission, during this legislative session. Any further questions on that item? Miss-
Yeah.
Okay. We're gonna go ahead and move to item number 8. Job stress experienced by correctional officers in Hawaii. Our
Wait a
research-
second, don't we have other legislative priorities? The bill we
Yeah.
introduced last
The
year?
3 we covered in last meeting.
Okay, yes, bill, okay,
Did you want to cover it again?
just as a reminder, but it's okay. We can
Yeah.
skip it.
Real quick. I believe Martha answered that question.
Well, we want to continue supporting
Is
our
the
bill
legislature opening on the 18th, same
the
day as our
third
meeting?
Wednesday. third
The
Wednesday.
The 17th, so we'll have a meeting one day after the opening of the legislature, so we can discuss more in depth the priorities. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to welcome to the meeting today, Sophie Gerlach, who has done some research on, stress on Hawaii's correctional officers. And I've asked her she's gonna do a little presentation today.
Mhm.
Ms. Gerlach?
Hi, thank you very much for having me. I've done this presentation in several iterations. I have to admit, this is the most nervous I've ever been doing it because I'm finally presenting to the community. I'm so excited. So I just want to say thank you for that. I'm gonna share my screen. Just make sure it's all. Okay. Can somebody confirm if they can see my slides, but not like the notes version of it?
Yes,
we can see
you
your
can see the slide.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me again today. My name is Dr. Sophie Gollop. I conducted my dissertation research on job stress experienced by correctional officers in Hawaii related to working in a carceral space. This research was conducted, the interviews were collected in 2019 and 2020, and this was finally published in 2022 when I graduated. So I'm going to be presenting my findings to you today. Let's get going. So here's the agenda. And first of all, I'd like to share the purpose of the study. So the purpose of my study was to examine the impact of regularly existing in what's called carceral space, which is a fancy term for places affected and impacted by incarceration, jail, prison, et cetera, on correctional officers in Hawaii, and to highlight the need for evidence-based programming designed to prevent and treat job stress experienced by correctional officers. So before we proceed, I just want to give you a little bit of what's called researcher positionality. Researcher positionality is basically just telling you like who I am and where I'm coming from, because even though the goal is for research to be objective, research is conducted by people who have feelings and see the world through a lens. So it's important for you to know who I am. My PhD is in something called community psychology. Community psychology is a systems level approach to research and social justice. And typically when people study community psychology, they choose a group or groups of vulnerable populations to dedicate their research to. The whole purpose is meant to be to do research that actually gets out into the community and is used to make helpful choices in policy, practice, et cetera, as opposed to just doing research that kind of lives in this ivory tower and gets to other researchers, but doesn't get out there. And also, so that being said, I am a researcher and a doctor of psychology, but also I am a person and a social activist. So I got into this research because I started working at OCCC in December of 2015. I was a graduate research assistant that was stationed there for a project, and I was there for 3 years in total. And when I first started working there, my interest was actually in inmate and their families' wellness and the impact of incarceration on them. But as I began working there, I was positioned in the correctional officer office. I was in the security office, and I got to know the officers. And in the 3 years I worked there, that's how I became interested in correctional officer wellness and well-being. And that's how I found my research topic. So I also feel it's important to tell you that even though I am a researcher, I also conducted this study with the purpose and intention of using it for social advocacy. And last but not least, I am presenting as a doctor and a civilian and an independent researcher, but some of you might know me through my other title. I am the Community Research Coordinator at Hawaii Health and Harm Reduction Center. I love my job, but just to be clear, I'm not representing them today. I'm representing my own research. So first, let's get into introducing the problem, the general problem, which is job stress. Before we get into this, I also want to be really clear that this is a systemic organizational issue that we're going to be talking about. So please be kind in your comments and reactions to Tommy and his team and everyone else that works in this space. It is very challenging, and they did not create the system. So stress, generally speaking, is the relationship between a person and environment where the environment is taxing or exceeding their resources and endangering their well-being. And of course, being exposed to prolonged periods of stress creates psychological and negative impacts on your health, or psychological and physical negative impacts on your health. And more specifically, we're talking about job stress, which is an employee's feelings of job-related tension, anxiety, frustration that lead to psychological and physical health problems. Several studies have been done that have shown that being a prison staff member, not just correctional officer, any prison or jail staff member, is one of the most stressful positions one can be in. So the problem we're going to be discussing today is specifically job stress experienced by correctional officers. There is a large body of research on job stress experienced by police officers, but correctional officers don't get as much attention or kind of love in the research world. And if they do, it's often in a very polarizing and negative way, not usually an exploration of why some things might be happening to them and by them. But when I first got into researching this topic, there was one study that really motivated me and that I always came back to, and that was this one. The US Department of Justice Program's Diagnostic Center study found that correctional officers have a higher rate of suicide than those in other occupations, experience some level of post-traumatic stress disorder during their careers, and likely will not live to see their 59th birthdays. I remember when I first saw this finding, thinking that that's 59. I was like, that seems so specific. That can't be correct. But I do have to say that through my own personal research and through the literature reviews I've conducted, and anecdotally from my time at OCCC, all of this does seem to suggest that the study is correct. So moving on to what the research questions were. One was, what is the nature of the relationship between correctional officers and their work environment? And how do they cope with this stress? So quickly, the methods, I conducted basically I conducted an interview study, and I interviewed 20 correctional officers who were currently or formerly employed at OCCC, from as little as 3 years to as many as 31, with an average of 16.5 years, or a cumulative of 330 years, total years of service. The interviews took place in Starbucks or a private location of their choosing, and the interviews ranged from 23 minutes to 2 hours long, averaging about 1 hour each. I then conducted a phenomenological data analysis, which I won't bore you with, but that just means I combed through 20 very long interviews to find common themes. The point of this study was to see what all the correctional officers had in common, not what made them different. And now onto the more exciting part, the results. So the results were many. I found 6 overarching categories with 14 themes and 42 sub-themes. Don't worry, I'm not going to put you through going through every single one of those. I did condense those findings into 5 main findings, with some quotes to highlight them. So the first finding was that the participants did experience OCCC as a liminal carceral space. Basically, I used a theory of liminality to talk about how OCCC is basically a place that has a totally different set of rules than the outside world. And most carceral spaces do. There is a different way that things work and function inside of the space, and then there's the way that the world works and functions outside of the space. And moving freely and regularly between those spaces is stressful. So they did experience it as stressful. I asked them about having daily routines for going to work, and they all emphatically said that they really had to like gear up to go. They had to rest their minds. They did things like listening to music, and they had little morning routines like we all do. They also talked about having like a psychological impact about when they were heading into work. They had to really mentally prepare, felt like they had to put their game faces on, and experienced like a sense of dread. And also they had the psychological impact of when they left work, where they were like feeling either really happy and excited or super exhausted and relieved. And they had a lot of daily routines for when they got home to kind of help them transition out of that space and into the home space. Just a couple quotes from this. They talked a lot about their need to gear up to get like really mentally and physically prepared to enter the space. So putting on their game face, one correctional officer said, "I put my game face on. It looks like I don't," by the way, I apologize, there's some swearing in the quotes. "It looks like I don't give a shit, because in that position is a lot of stuff we deal with. You have to remain calm." They also said they really experienced kind of a sense of dread when they were on their way to work, because they never really knew what they were going to expect. And one said, "This place for me, I feel like it's not a good place. It's like a cesspool of humanity or something, and that's how I feel when I come to work. It's like doom and gloom." The second finding was that their interpersonal relationships outside of work really did suffer, kind of as a result of their job stress. A lot of pretty much all of them talked about how they struggled with bringing their job home. They struggled with slipping into talking to their family like they were inmates, or being short-tempered with them. I also asked if they, confided in their partners, wives, girlfriends, husbands, etc. I asked if they confided in their partners about this job stress, and a lot of them said that they didn't, because they felt like their partners wouldn't understand, or like they had to shield their partners from the upsetting details of their job. And then also, not surprisingly, as a result of theme 5 and 6, there was a prevalence of divorce among the correctional officers, and they attributed this to going into corrections after being married. So several of them said, oh, if you're already a correctional officer, when you get married, maybe it'll last. But if you're not a correctional officer and you're married to somebody or partnered with somebody and then you become one, it won't last, because essentially they said it changes you. And communication issues. So a couple quotes regarding talking to their families, like their inmates. One correctional officer reflected, I used to be this quiet person, just no bother, but now certain things tick me off. He described his wife often saying to him, you know, you can't do that. You can't talk like that to your kid. That's not one inmate. And he said, you know, when I sit down, I do start thinking over these past couple of years, and I know I've been different since I started working here. Also, they expressed and admitted that they had become short-tempered. And they said it's pretty common knowledge among their wives and partners, and that they really did try to turn it off and turn it on, but that it was very difficult to do. So one correctional officer said, I turn it off, turn it on, but sometimes it comes out, the joke, the CO comes out, the CO's words come out. But he said, you have to learn to talk here, how to talk at work. I try not to talk like that around my kids, even though that's the way of the world. That's not the way that they should hear the world. And regarding, you know, when I followed up on this and I said, well, do you talk to your partner about your stress? Most of them said that they didn't because they felt like they wouldn't understand. You know, one person said, you're not going to know how I feel unless you've been in the same situation I've been in. Another said she doesn't really understand it. She doesn't understand the violent mentality. Somebody went to the ER today with a broken jaw and fractured eye socket, for example. They also said that they didn't share with their partners because they were trying to shield them from upsetting details about things that happened at work. And a lot of things do happen there. Sometimes I don't tell her everything. Like I've never told her about when I was over there trying to save the guy's life that tried to hang himself. I don't like to freak her out. I don't want her to think about the stuff I go through. So my third finding had to do with their physical and mental health. And most of them expressed that they had experienced a decline in their physical and mental health since becoming correctional officers. One very prominent theme was hypervigilance. Hypervigilance is one of the kind of key indicators of post-traumatic stress disorder. And there were so many things to support it. A lot of them experienced, whenever they went out into the world, their eyes darting around, always needing a visual of the exit, and just generally deciding to avoid crowds. Also, they reported having several negative health consequences, such as high blood pressure, stroke, and heart attack, increased substance use, and just generally poor health. There were a lot of quotes to choose from for eyes darting around, but here's one of them. I always watch people's hands, trust nobody. It's a shame, but it's a product of the environment. You know, it's a very toxic environment. I'm always watching people's hands. I don't trust anybody. So, you know, this hypervigilance is, if you're used to being in extreme circumstances or circumstances where anything could happen, which can be the case when working in carceral environments, you start to expect that everywhere, and you start to act and react like that everywhere. So some good real world examples of this might be when we see a news article or something where someone who has a very stressful job, like a correctional officer or a police officer, overreacts or overexerts force. Those are things that could be examples of hypervigilance due to PTSD. They tend to react quicker than they can think because they're always waiting for what's going to happen next. And then also needing a visual of the exit was very prominent. In the first couple of interviews I did, I noticed that the correctional officers were having a hard time focusing and seemed kind of jittery. And then I realized it was because I had clumsily positioned myself facing an exit, but not them. So I actually ended up switching seats with them. And then for the rest of the interviews, I conducted them so that the officer was always in view of the exit. And it was actually went a lot smoother. They had a lot of little idiosyncrasies of things they did when they went out into the world to kind of make them feel more in control. This particular person shared that I won't go out to a restaurant or to the mall in slippers. Basically, if the shit hits the fan, you have to be able to run or run away from wherever that is. How many times have you seen mass shootings where people are wearing the wrong shoe wear? They just can't run from someone else because of their shoes. And this is an example of something that when this person shared this with me, this was like the most normal thing in the world to them. But most people don't think like that, right? Most people don't experience the world like that. That's very unique. And also, a lot of them expressed that over time, going out in public and in crowds had just become too stressful and that they avoided it as much as they could. So one officer said, "I'm not like how I was. I don't like to go to public places. It's not because I don't like them. I get paranoid in places like that. It stresses me out. I don't go to public places. I just stay at home, dive, and work out." Also, increased substance use did come up. I want to be very clear that I was actually very mindful to not ask questions about substance use because I really didn't want that to become the focus of what I found in this research. And when they did talk about substance use, they were often talking about their coworkers, so not directly about themselves. But one participant did talk about himself. He was retired, so I think he felt more comfortable doing so. And he just talked about that, he said, me and tequila got along really well, scotch, we got along really well. And that's how I dealt with it. I drank all the time. I would drink to excess. But me and alcohol got along too well, and that's how I dealt. But the hepatitis was a backhanded godsend. I stopped drinking. So this person developed, this person was an alcoholic. Which thing you want to say came first is up to you, and also developed hepatitis. So they had quit drinking, but they did attribute their excessive drinking and hepatitis to their job stress. And just generally poor health. One of the participants said a lot of people get sick just before retirement. Many will die, or they die soon after, probably just maybe stress. Maybe the body is so used to it, and once you don't have it anymore, you don't know how to cope with it and it shuts down. I only know 2 COs that live longer than 10 years after retirement. And this was a really insightful comment because this was actually what drove me to start looking into this research. When I was doing work out of the security office at OCCC, I started to notice that there were funeral announcements all the time for correctional officers, young correctional officers, I mean, like anywhere from their 30s to their 50s or 60s. And I just thought, like, this just doesn't seem right. And a lot of them do get ill right before, right after retirement, which lines up with a lot of research about holding stress. So my fourth finding was that obviously they were very insightful about what was going on with them and how they felt. So I said, naturally, I asked if they would want access to resources for their job stress. And they did. They talked about feeling they had a lack of resources or support for themselves. I wanted to get more into this because it was very unclear on if there was anything available for them to like cope with this mental and physical stress or not. I consistently asked all of my participants, and some said that yes, there was some type of available resources or support. Some said no, there's definitely no resources or support. Some said that there used to be, but there aren't anymore. Most of them commented on a lack of debriefing after a traumatic incident. And they all talked at great length about how, in lieu of not feeling they had access to resources. They were very supportive of each other. And also when I said, okay, well, if there were resources, would you go? Because this is something, my occupation is in the nonprofit world. This is something you see a lot. You'll identify a problem, create a resource, and then sometimes nobody shows up. So I asked them, if there was something, would you go? They said that they definitely wanted someone to talk to, that they felt like resources and support should not just be for inmates, but that they did acknowledge that the culture of corrections, especially kind of a more masculine macho culture, would be a barrier. But at the end of the day, they did feel that it would be worth it and that people would go. So regarding that they're feeling there used to be some kind of resources, one participant said, we used to talk about what happened, like the guy hang himself and stuff like that after the fact. We would talk about it if anybody needed time or whatever. They used to have that, but now they don't have that, especially after the shooting and stuff like that. We don't even address it. The topic of the lack of debriefing after a traumatic situation came up at great length. This participant in particular started crying and was talking about an incident that had happened recently to them. They said, I know you probably heard about the shooting that killed the inmate a few months ago. Until this day, it's bothered me. I believe we deserved a debriefing on the situation, the event. There was no debriefing. There was nothing. There was nothing to tell us, okay, should this occur again, we have an available team. I know a lot of people were kind of like, didn't know how to handle the situation, what we should have done. So they should have debriefed us, let us know, should this occur again, this is how we should handle it. We get nothing to this day from that situation. They don't talk about it. They refuse to talk about it. There was also an interesting, there was an interesting amount of little bit of resentment toward the inmates, but the resentment wasn't toward them personally. They had some resentment that after something traumatic happened at the facility, they felt that there were more resources and support available for inmates than there were for the staff. So one correctional officer said, when I first seen somebody hang themselves and die, there's more stuff for the inmates when something drastic happens. Let's say the inmate sees the guy hanging in his cell. The CO responds. We have to cut the guys down. We have to do first aid. They talk to the inmate more because they're more concerned about his well-being than the actual CO that has to deal with actually attempting or trying to save this guy's life. You feel for the guy too, but there's, oh, poor inmate, just make your report. The CO make your report and you're good. So it wasn't that they, like I said, it wasn't that they had anger toward the inmates. They just felt like the inmate well-being in lieu of drastic and intense situations was more valued than their own. And I think they just wanted the equivalent of that. But as I said, they did mention that the culture of corrections would be a barrier to accessing services, especially services where you would have to talk about some of your own vulnerabilities. One officer said, this environment's very masculine, so the norms are just different in this place. But jail corrections is such a different society. What's normal outside of jail walls is not the norms in here. It's a very masculine environment. However, at the end of the day, they did feel strongly that they would want something. And my fifth finding was that they stressed the importance of the sense of support at OCCC. So amongst themselves, they had a very strong sense of camaraderie. They talked a lot about being surrounded by good people, how important socializing was, sense of support among themselves. Unfortunately, when they talked about the organization as a whole, there was a strong perceived lack of support. They described feeling unsupported, unvalued, and uncared for. So as far as support from coworkers, they were very enthusiastic and loving. They said things like, we are our own support group. We do draw solace from each other in the fact that we shared experiences. In some ways, we're like combat veterans. The camaraderie, the people at OCCC, I would give my life for to this day, and I'm sure they would for me. One of the best compliments I've ever received from a fellow CO was, there is not a door I would not go through with you. That's the best compliment I think I've ever gotten, because I'd rather get it from someone I'm working with. Unfortunately, their strong ties were great, but also kind of offset by feeling that they didn't have a lot of support from the larger organization. When asked about this, these are some of the quotes. They don't give a shit, really. We work for a non-caring master, and I feel like they're sucking me for everything I got. And then when I'm done, they're just throwing me to the fire. And also, a lot of them had this real sense of kind of regret and remorse around their choice of occupation. They, without prompt, they talked about kind of wishing they had done things differently, but feeling they didn't have a choice now. So this person said, after going into the second year, I started seeing this job for not what I thought it would be. Every time I get this feeling that that's it for me, and it's like, I just want to do something else, something that's going to make me happy. If you're not happy with your job, you're going to feel like one slave, and that's how I feel. I told them I feel like that over here. I know really even like this job. So in conclusion, this research study really focused and spent many years exploring the unique lives and experiences of correctional officers working at OCCC. And I have to say that there are definitely things that are very specific to that position, but in a lot of ways, it's really just an enhancement of what we all experience. We all have the same basic needs, desires, and challenges. I saw in them the desire for stability, the want for connection, the admission of the fragility of our minds and bodies under the burden of stress, and the need for support, and sort of how they felt about themselves and their own stories at the end of the day, and their desire to take control of that. So I'm really grateful that those 20 correctional officers allowed me to, enter into their minds and their lives and their experiences. It was really amazing that they allowed me to do that. And that's all from me. So yeah, I don't know if you have any questions or comments or anything like that, but thank you so much for letting me present to you.
Thank you, Sophie. Any questions, Commissioner Mike?
Yep. How should we address you? Doctor?
Oh, you can just call me Sophie.
I have a niece, Sophie. My name's Mike, and I was at family court off and on for 30 years as a judge, chief judge. We did a study, nationally, of 250 domestic violence judges, and they became aware of compassion fatigue, stress, acting out. They then tried to balance their lives through pets, all kind of collegiality, and then they had to learn how to connect. We also studied death reviews. We wrote some articles on that, or I wrote an article on that. People die, and we take it seriously. We learn from it. So the bottom line, and I'd love to talk to you sometime more informally, was that judges that see themselves as healers and as coaches and as social workers are going to do better than somebody with a black robe with a giant mallet. And even though we get paid probably way more than a CO, we park in a fancy parking place, we wear a black robe, it's not Kevlar, and the podium in front of me as a judge was bulletproof. So what you're saying, I resonate with, and I'd love to help you out. As part of the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges, and they've done a lot of studies. And most judges, after 5 to 7 years, start getting twitchy about all this because, the rubber meets the road. And I really appreciate what you're saying. It resonates. Thank you, Dr. Sophie.
Thank you so much.
Go ahead, Martha.
Sophie, I very much appreciate the work that you're doing in this area. We've talked a lot as a commission after our visits to the facilities is the awful condition of the physical plants, which have been deteriorating over decades. It's been going on a long time. That also contributes to the anxiety of the correctional officers that they are working in such an awful work environment with just a physical plant. One of the things that we're very aware of, that inmates are idle most of the day. And idleness does lead to the devil's workshop. The more we have the inmates involved with programs and active, the more satisfied the inmates are and the better the job is for our correctional officers. So all of this goes hand in hand. We should not be treating inmates better than our correctional officers. They are the backbone of our organization. We should give them every opportunity to advance in their career and provide them with the training and experiences, such as going to national conferences or going to trainings that are held on a national basis, so they know how much we value them, and they will bring back that knowledge and help improve the situation. So I really appreciate the work you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. And they did express a lot of interest in things like that when we talked about training opportunities and things. It didn't make it into the dissertation because it didn't come up super often because I didn't specifically ask about it, but they had some, I mean, really, the correctional officers had such wonderful insights into themselves and their occupations. And one of their insights that they mentioned pretty regularly was that, you know, they are not trained to handle our broken system, wherein the majority of folks they are overseeing are experiencing mental health problems, substance use problems, you know, things like that. So they fully acknowledge that, like, they don't know how to do those things and that they're not caseworkers, they're not psychologists. And they did express interest in like learning how to work with those populations more in that way. Because really the main tools they have are as enforcers, but they really do want more. So I hope that happens for them.
Me too.
Ron?
Well, thank you. Well done.
Don't be sorry. Thank you for making it. I love you.
Thank you, Ron. Wow, Sophie, that was really good. Appreciate the presentation at this time. As a veteran correctional officer, you know, I cannot disagree with everything you said. You know, have been there, lived it myself. Oddly enough, I didn't hear you bring it up. Maybe I missed it, but I'll throw it in because it probably may not have been part of your research. But in many of the things that you talked about in regard to PTSD and the stress level, there's a couple of things I want to. When you have a correctional officer, let's say at OCCC, where they go to work every day and they're averaging at least 30 to 40 individuals that they have to watch. Yeah, and sometimes they're by themselves or with another officers. When in observation and working for an 8-hour period in a housing unit, you're constantly looking to make sure that everything is running smoothly and that there's no violation. And after years of doing that, you develop a keen sense of observation of human behavior. And at the same point, when you go to Pearl Ridge and Ala Moana, it's not the same anymore, because you begin to see things that you never saw before because your mind is so keened up in observation. And you're judging the crowd because you're seeing things happen that nobody else is noticing because you have that keen sense of observation. And it's hard for a correctional officer to turn it off because it comes natural to him. And so it's hard for him to relax. Yeah, when they're out in the community. And that's why they tend to like to only be with their other officers and the other officers' families. Even when going home to a family, they can't turn it off. And they're judging their kids and their partners because they're observing and they're thinking from their professional perspective. The other thing that I mentioned, and when you talked about cutting down, you know, suicides or finding individuals not alive, I'll say it that way, and the stress that brings on, the stress of family life and whatnot, you know, there is a suicide statistic. Yeah, and I can't tell you of my peers that have committed suicide, you know, there wasn't a lot in my 25 years. So that's a reflection of what you've been talking about. Yeah, as well as how do we create that therapeutic environment that will benefit the working staff as well. Yeah, we want to move from the punitive, because the punitive is bad, not just for the offender, but for the staff working in that environment. Yeah, the staff is a product of the physical environment as well as the interaction they have because of the physical environment. So this is important that we have this discussion at this particular time, and we may touch a little bit more on it in with Christian, and I'm not sure, but that is the reason why we are moving very strongly in surveying staff. Not just the correctional officers, but the nurses, the operational, the medical, mental health, the cooks. Yeah, everyone that has anything to do within the correctional environment, we will be getting a sense of what they feel in a very large survey across the state. So there's enough information that you're providing us with, Sophie, that helping us get to this next step. Yeah, and once we get to that next step, and we get the results of the research with the surveys of staff, then we can decide what the next step after that's going to be. So thank you so much for being here. Go ahead, man.
Dr. Sophie, for 16 years, I've been part of a group that looks at spirituality in the prison and children of prisoners and their families. And particularly in Hawaii, we all enjoy 50, 100, 200 family members. Some of them we're not too sure about, but and I can help you with that, because if you scratch these COs, and a lot of them have a certain amount of spirituality, and I'm looking at some of the chat talks about mindfulness. And the separation of church and state does not exist when we're talking about health. You can get into it. And I encourage you to dig into that and forget about the First Amendment. Dig deep. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. With no further, appreciate that presentation at this time. We're going to go ahead and move forward to item number 9, the monthly oversight coordinator report.
All right, happy December, everyone. My name is Kristen Johnson, and I am the Oversight Coordinator. George, do you mind putting the report in the chat? I'm just briefly going to go over this. It is on our website. You're more than welcome to read it over. But I want to start with, there were a couple letters that the Commission had sent to the Department of Public Safety. Both of them are attached to the Oversight Coordinator report, but the first one is a proposed action item for the Department of Public Safety Inspections and Investigations Office. And so basically the Commission had submitted a letter that encompassed the proposal and also rationale for strengthening the Department of Public Safety's Inspections and Investigations Office. You can read through that letter and see why. I know the department is planning to respond to the Commission on that. In addition, the Commission also submitted a letter of support for the Waiava Correctional Facility Plan Review Use and Special Use Permit. My understanding of this is that the Department of Public Safety needed a plan review use and special use permit in order to keep using the Waiava Correctional Facility. And so, of course, the Commission supports that. Waiava is one of our more rehabilitative facilities. And so again, you know, the letter is attached to the report. And feel free to read it
And
over.
this was an after the fact letter. This is something we should have done 35 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I was surprised to get the request, but happy to, the Commission was happy to submit. In addition to that, the Commission and staff participated in the National Association of Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement 2023 conference. There were actually 2 conferences that took place. So one was in person in Chicago, Illinois, and these conferences are really neat. They're kind of split up into people who oversee police and people who oversee jails and prisons, but they really, you know, help different oversight entities figure out the best way and best practices really to lead and run their oversight offices. So Commissioner Martha Torney and Chair Mark Patterson and I attended that in Chicago. And then additionally, Commissioner Mike Town and I also participated in a virtual training forum, which took place on December 5th and 6th. And one thing that was kind of excited about that is that one of the training panels, myself and also State Representative Greg Takayama participated in. And so we talked about maintaining the momentum, strategies and lessons for sustaining progress and the growth of prison oversight. And so it was really great to have Rep Takayama, you know, talk about like how the commission was created and years of progress that Hawaii has made. I just want to remind you all that the Reentry and Diversion Strategic Plan is up on our website. That was covered in our last meeting, but please take a look. And then other than that, just a couple of project updates. So Sophie, I really, really appreciate you presenting. That was such a fantastic presentation. Sophie had shared her dissertation with me, I think when I first started. I was pretty new here. It was about 1.5 years ago, and we've talked pretty continuously about her presenting to the commission. So I'm so glad to see that it finally came to fruition. We just wanted to make sure that she presented to the department first, out of respect, and she did have the opportunity to do that. So we appreciate the leadership, you know, listening to her presentation, making time for that. And Mark is completely right. Between Sophie's dissertation and her findings and what we hear from correction staff when we go into the facilities, the commission really felt that it's important to have an all-encompassing staff survey so that we can hear directly from the people who are doing the work. I'm not a correction officer. I've never been a correction officer. I will never know what they're feeling or what they're facing. And so we wanted to make sure that we're hearing directly from the people who are doing the job. So the survey did go out in an electronic format from Mark that went to all over 4,000 PSD employees. So we're hoping that they'll participate in the electronic survey, but don't worry if you don't want to participate in the electronic survey. For those who work for the department who might be listening, we're also doing a paper survey. And so myself and also Kara Campani will be going to every facility. We will be going to every post, and we will be physically handing out the paper surveys and then physically taking them back and incorporating them in the results. So if I can just very quickly go through the schedule, January 3rd will be at OCCC, January 4th will be at Waiava, January 5th, OCCC, January 8th will be at Kulani, January 9th will be at Women's, January 10th will be at Maui, MCCC, January 12th will be at KCCC, January 15th will be at HCCC, and January 16th will be at Halava. So it'll be a very busy month for us. And so if my emails are a little delayed, that's why. But we're really excited about this survey. And after we get the results, we're going to close the survey February 1st. And after we get the results, we're going to plan some talk stories directly with staff to go over the results and, more importantly, talk about the solutions that staff want to see that will make a big difference for them in their environment. So we really appreciate the support from UPW, HGEA, and also, of course, department leadership in this process. Other than that, that's it for me. So again, go ahead and check out the report on our website. But otherwise, that's it.
Thank you, Kristen, for all your hard work. Appreciate that report. Martha, you want to go over the last meeting after was on the Big Island, and we visited Kulani Correctional Facility, and Martha's going to report out on our visit at that time.
Okay, we were met at the facility by the warden, the acting warden, Benjamin Catriz, the lieutenant, and the acting corrections supervisor. The acting corrections supervisor, she's the granddaughter of the former warden at Kulani, George Iranon's granddaughter, and she is the only social work staff up there. There are 88 inmates, and she is the only social work staff. You know, we know that filling positions are hard anywhere, and I would presume that public safety is continuing to recruit for these positions, but it's a hard job if you're just one person, especially for a transitional facility like Kulani. Kulani has an operational capacity of 160 according to 2001 Population Management Commission capacity report. But since it reopened, it was closed in 2009 under the Lingle administration, and then it reopened as a correctional facility in 2014. And since then, the Department of Public Safety has been listing the capacity as 200. At the time we visited, there were 88 inmates in custody, and so that puts it really around half the capacity that is allowed. In terms of staffing, there are 50 authorized adult correctional officers positions, but 9 were vacant at the time that we did our visit. We've also been concerned as we go to the different facilities is the amount of idle time that inmates have. And as a result of that, they're stuck in their living units a lot. We even noticed that at Kulani. The inmates were either on the lanai outside the living unit or located inside the living unit, where in the past they used to have a lot more freedom to walk around the complex. And we had rooms open, such as a music room, so they could go in and play music and stuff. So it is a continued concern of ours that they do not have enough activities. Let's see. Furlough limitations. We were very surprised to learn that for the people at Kulani to get into the work furlough program at Hawaii Community Correctional Center, they had to have $300 in savings. This is the first time I have heard of anything like this, that they had to have that kind of money. And inmates work make 25 cents an hour. And the most they usually work a day is 6 hours. Some work even less than that. But if you use 6 hours, 5 days a week, you'll find out that it would take 40 weeks or 10 months to earn that amount of money, $300. And it means also that all their earning is going towards that. None of it is going towards restitution, which is ordered by the court. And of course, you know that's going to be taken out of it. None of it is going for store orders so they can buy the things that they need, which are, can be such things as healthcare items. And none of it is going towards their family in that way. So we're very surprised to hear that. We also discovered that OCCC requires $100 in savings. Maui requires $50 in savings. Kauai does not require any savings to join their work furlough program. We find the need for savings to enter some furlough programs thwart the progress towards reentry, and we express our deep concern about that. The facility opened in the 1940s, and it is very well maintained. The staff we found to be courteous and professional and seemed responsible. They were interacting a lot with the inmates. The facility was clean, and the bathroom and shower areas were fairly well maintained. I did notice that in the shower areas, it is a gang shower. There were tiles missing, and we only visited one, door 6. There were tiles missing, and they had an odor that could indicate that there's mold in there. So we do need to take care of that. The medical staff described the population as being very stable in their health, but that's a requirement to get up to Kulani to have stable health. If you have asthma, there's a good chance you'll be rejected from Kulani due to the altitude, and other health issues may preclude you from going to Kulani because it is a working facility. The space in the medical unit is adequate, orderly, and clean. And people who require suicide watch, though, are sent down to HCCC for that purpose. The library was in very good order, lots of recreational books, and they get almost 100 books a month in donations to the facility. And inmates are allowed to take out 5 books at a time. The recreational library open 3 hours a day, 3 days a week, and they can go in and out during that period of time. They're allowed 5 books and 3 magazines in their living area. When we visit the dorm, they're obviously taking advantage of that. One of the things the librarian shared with us is there's a very high demand for trade books such as agriculture, automotive, animal husbandry, carpentry, and cooking, etc. People in custody are exploring possible work opportunities when released. And one of the ACOs brought up, yeah, some of them are looking into doing car detailing. So they are looking for opportunities for them. The law library was spacious and clean and orderly. The law books were adequate for post-conviction relief, including Rule 40. And it possessed the right materials they needed. The librarian uses a form to schedule appointments for use of the law library and has about 3 or 4 uses per month. The librarian certainly was very interested in helping people in custody and providing resources. Copies can cost 25 cents a page. So again, if you're saving your money up to go into HCCC furlough, you're going to delay it if you're making copies. The mess hall is a very large room that's adjacent to the kitchen. It was neat and clean. It is also used where they show videos, which can be movies, but can also be educational, informative videos, such as PREA requirements. While we were there, the inmates were cleaning in the kitchen. It is spacious and well equipped with appliances in working order. People in custody were cleaning the kitchen at the time the commission arrived. One of the things I always pay attention to is the refrigerators and the freezers and the temperatures in them. And the temperatures, even though the gauges on the outside of the reefer and the freezer no longer work, they had put new gauges inside and they were adequate. The temperatures were perfect. Dorm 6 again was one that we visited. It's one of the original buildings from the 1940s. And since the population is less than 50% of capacity, not all dorms are in use, but dorm 6 was not at all crowded either. So they're spreading the inmates out between the ones they do have open. I had the opportunity to speak with 2 inmates that were in custody who were in the day room watching television. And they had different experiences based on where they came from. One had transferred from Halava Correctional Facility and liked the freedom of movement at Kulani, but would prefer more opportunities to work. The second had come from Saguaro Correctional Facility and finding Kulani lacked the levels of activities he participated in the mainland. There's too much idle time at Kulani from his point of view. And again, from the commission's point of view, we found there's a lot of idle time throughout the system. Many inmates were sitting in the bunk area. Some of them were playing cards. Some of them were reading. Some of them were just in conversation at that point. Visitation was an area that we did have concern. It is held in a separate building and has always been held in the separate building that's by the front gate. And it is currently scheduled. It's very limited. It's scheduled Saturday or Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m. or 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. At the beginning of COVID, contact visits were terminated and have yet to be restored. They still have non-contact visits. Staff and leadership informed the commission that the cessation continues today as a security measure to keep contraband out. But at the same time, they told us about an incident of people dropping contraband outside the lava rock wall around the property perimeter and the inmates running out there to get contraband, not that it was coming into a visitation. We see no reason for non-contact visits to continue. People should be able to come and visit their family. So people are primarily using video conferences, and I think part of that may be due to the fact that they're not allowed to touch their loved ones. We also were told that if someone needs to is in the visiting area and someone needs to use the bathroom, the visit is terminated. And that did not used to be so in the past. The visiting room is a very large room. We could accommodate many people at that point, and I think we need to reopen the visiting room with contact visits. After our visit, the staff received the numerous calls from the community members whose families and loved ones are incarcerated at Kulani, and the concerns expressed by the community focused on limited opportunities for connection with the people in custody. Family members and loved ones expressed frustration that visits could not be scheduled in advance or due to the limited number of visitors who are accepted at one time. And only 5 people can be visiting at a single time. So that means 8 a.m. to 9 p.m., 5 people at the most.
No, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m.
I mean, yeah, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., I'm sorry, and then 12 p.m. to 1 p.m., only 5 people. And, you know, the bathroom thing really bothered us. Additionally, commission staff were told by these people that people in custody were allowed 1 phone call per day in the evening, not to exceed 15 minutes, and people in custody are entitled to a maximum of 1 paid video visit or 1 non-contact visit a week. We think this should be increased. There needs to be a lot more contact with their families and their loved ones. Let's see. Industrial areas and work line. The commission did not have time to visit these areas because we were very time constrained. I'm hoping that we will get to go back and visit these areas. The staff has had more time to be up at the Kulani Correctional Facility. We do have work line is the focus of Kulani, but it seems that it's limited in how many hours a day they're actually out at work line. In the past, and I'm going back, you know, many years, there used to be work line activity going on through the 2nd watch and the 3rd watch, and it seems like now that it's basically the 2nd watch where work is taking place. I think there could be more. This would reduce idle time. People could spend more times on the work lines. The work line does include janitorial, food service, agricultural, which is very exciting, their agricultural program, education, working in the garage, housing, recreation, laundry, utility, conservation, orientation. They also have a work line that goes down to the Pana Eva Zoo and helps with cleanup at that point. The farm, we have a lot of discussion here about the farm. Again, it was the staff that got to see that. The inmates are very proud of the produce that they grow, and we got to see that in the kitchen. It looks so healthy. It looks really, really good. It's mentioned in the report that the farm manager holds a PhD in the field and serves as a teacher and mentor to the students that are working. And also showed that its work aligns with the state sustainability initiative to support the environment, land, and services, the cost-saving mechanism. Kulani is able to provide all its own produce and plus most of the produce for HCCC. Let's see, there's more discussion about how much food they're able to share. Education and programming, due to time restraints, again, we did not have the opportunity to visit the education and programming space, but there was nothing going on at that time, unfortunately. For a while, this was our primary facility for the sex offender treatment program that is still offered up there, but I don't know whether it's the primary program for the state anymore. There are colleges and GED classes available. And again, no programs were operating when we were there in the afternoon. So our recommendations are, first of all, begin offering in-person visitation and expand access to phone calls. Increase the population at Kulani, as Kulani is one of the most rehabilitative facilities in the state. This has been a concern of the commissioners since we first met, that Kulani and Waiava have been filled at only about 50% of their capacity. And part of our job is we need to work with the department in monitoring and reviewing the comprehensive offender reentry program, including facility, educational, and treatment programs, rehabilitative services, work furlough, and Hawaii's paroling authority oversight of parolees. The commission may make recommendations to the Department of Public Safety, the paroling authority, and the legislature regarding reentry and parole services. So we're paying particular concern to this. And I think this is also one way where we can offer the best help to the Department of Public Safety in advocating that funds be allocated for these programs to take place at the correctional facilities. We also find that there are minimum security inmates who are stuck at Halava. Now, I heard both from the Waiava warden and from the warden at Kulani that they are finding that when inmates transfer from Halava, many of them are not prepared to work, and they have sent people back because they refuse to participate in the work program. So that indicates to me we have to be doing a better job in making more opportunities available at Halava so people get in the habit of working and are better prepared to move on to Kulani at that point. We also want to see the removal of the monetary eligibility for furlough participation and move inmates through the system in a more orderly manner. Because found in the report, it's saying that, let's see, I thought it was in this report. Yes, it is, I'm sorry. At Arizona, we have 53 inmates that are classified as minimum. At Halava, 183 that are classified as minimum. I want to remind you again, though, that the warden said that they send some people back who are unwilling to work. And at Waiava, we have 27 people who are eligible for community, so they should be in furlough beds. And at Kulani, 24 that should be in furlough beds. I'm wondering if these monetary requirements is holding them back. And then for furlough, the staff did some analysis of furlough, and they said at HCCC, the furlough capacity is 100, but there were 32 inmates participating at the time they did this survey. At MCCC, there are 32 beds, but only 14 participating. At OCCC, on site, there are 176 beds, of which 120 were participating. Another 15 are on community extended furlough, so they're at home with their families. KCCC, they have, let's see. Oh, it talks about at KCCC, we don't rate the furlough beds, and that is because they are in cabins that used to be relief housing after Hurricane Iniki, and they do not meet fire standards. So in our capacity analysis that we did in 2001, we could not include those buildings because they did not meet the fire marshal's needs or the fire needs. So the capacity at Kauai is less than actually the number of beds that are available at Kauai, and that is the reason why. There's a difference between the two. And then the last thing is, one of the things we used to have is transportation shuttle that we had a parking area down by the Ponte Eva Zoo where staff could bring their cars, park it there, and then a bus brought them up. Now, at the time that we started that, the road, Steinbeck Highway, was in very, very bad condition. It has since been leveled and repaired, but still, it's very costly. It's almost a 20-mile trip to get up to Kalani. And it would be worthwhile if the staff, again, could park their cars down below and have transportation bring them up to the facility. And that's the report.
Thank you, Martha. Any other comments from the commissioners?
Any other observations anybody wants to share?
It was cold. It was very cold.
Did you see any nene geese?
Yes,
Main thing.
and again, we saw the Nene Kukai. And when I pointed it out, Mark goes, how'd you know what that was?
I think for the most part, as antiquated as Kulani facility is, and I believe, Martha, correct me if I'm wrong, we're talking about the early 40s.
1946 it opened,
1946.
but after the war.
1946, the facility was very well taken care of. Very impressed with the age of the facility and the condition that it was in. Of course, there were things that we saw that was mostly a cause of old age, and of course, the extreme environment conditions that those structures have been in. So kudos to the warden and the chief for the management of that facility at this time.
You know, one example of having more activities, there was one time where the inmates built a 3-hole golf course in the center area. And so it's one of the things they would do after dinner. They go out and they'd be shooting golf balls. And we used to leave some of the program rooms open, and one of them was used as a music room. And so that's not available anymore. I'd like to see that become available again.
Mike?
As a parole commissioner, we'd go up there once a month, every 2 months, and they had a volunteer chef who was very good. Was the food good? Did you get lunch there? Yeah, I thought that was a highlight. He came from Kona. No, you don't know?
I don't think that's there anymore.
He
Yeah.
was great.
So since we have brought staff on back in July of 2022 with the hiring of the oversight coordinator, we've been able to go around and visit almost every facility. Today will be our last one where we would go and visit Waiawa Correctional Facility after today's meeting. And so it has been a great experience, and we're learning how best to do these visits as a commission, and how we report out and how we make our recommendations to public safety from the things we find. So we will be moving forward after Waiawa to begin planning, or even now today, we're going to be planning our visits for 2024. So this will be an annual thing for us to at least have 6 visits off island, 4 visits off island.
Mhm.
Yeah, to see the other facilities, Hawaii, Maui, and twice to the Big Island, and continue to see how far we've come from the last time we visited. So
Yeah.
I think these visits are important, and as we continue to do them, we get better at observations, making recommendations, and working with public safety to resolving some of the issues that we find. So
I feel also that we need to consider just doing a visit on a day and not having a meeting the same day, because that has limited very much the amount of time we get to spend in correctional facilities.
yes. So we'll probably evaluate the whole process after we do the Waiawa to see how we can better do that. One of the things when we go to the neighbor islands, we're always in a rush to try and make sure we get back before the last flight. You know, so it's the first flight out and the last flight back. So with that being said, thank you, Martha, for reporting out for us. Commissioners, any more questions for Martha? At this time, item 11, I have nothing more to report out on HCR
Next
23.
meeting.
That we will be meeting on January 11th for you folks that want to observe and listen into our next meeting of the task force, which will be January 11th.
I had a comment, but Fred Hune asked me, because I was a parole commissioner, to sit in on the 11th to hopefully not model maybe how to do it right or wrong. Parole hearing. One of the issues that keeps coming up for me on parole, or came up and still comes up, can the inmates, can the prisoners do their programs? Is there enough capacity? I raised this with Kristen. I've had a couple calls. Are we backlogged? And I don't think we can solve that today, but is that part of what we're supposed to do? Is look at capacity for work for programs?
Yeah, so that is incorporated into the reentry strategic plan, and so we will be reporting on that early next year.
It's really frustrating if you have no misconducts, you're ready to go, you've served your minimum, but you haven't done 2 or 3 programs. As a commissioner, I would want them to do it outside, if that made sense. It's not a matter of checking these little mindless boxes. It's a matter of what will protect the community and what's fair to the inmate. And I think they should we should incentivize, make them rewarded for what they're doing well.
I agree. That's also, interestingly enough, a part of what we lovingly call Ted's bill. And so he added a part in there where basically like the people in custody aren't punished if the department can't provide a program. So no, those are great points, Mike, and we'll definitely have more information on that coming up in the next few months.
And Mike, that's the commissions, Juliana.
That's our
that we
yeah.
do. Not so much
I'm getting calls
HCR
on that.
23. Yeah.
And when we were at Halava, Warden Clooney was, again, things were not going on because we were there in the afternoon, but he talked about how the educational program is very well attended, and he could use more space or more opportunities so that more inmates could participate in the education programs.
Thank you, Martha. Okay. Can we all turn to look at item number 12? And what we're about to do right now is just make everything legal for these visits that we hope to do in 2024. And if you folks look at the packet that we were given today where it says limited meetings, Christian, we have to go to each facility. Yeah, so we gotta do this 8 times. And what I'm gonna do.
He's got a
We
script,
gotta do 2
folks.
motions for each one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And discussion. You have to
Okay,
discuss.
okay. So, give me 1 minute.
But we can't incorporate these by reference. We can't do it all at once.
No.
Bolus.
Yeah, I gotta go
No.
one by
Oh,
one.
dear.
I really tried. I tried, but
Lawyers got us by the throat.
yeah, OIP is very specific.
Shame
So
on them.
each one needs to be voted on individually with 2 motions. So it will take a little bit of time, but we put together a script to try to make it easier. And one of the biggest things is that there does have to be discussion. And so even if you repeat the same thing or some of the same points that's in the script, that's okay, but you do have to discuss.
Okay. As the chair, I'm gonna ask for, let's just start with Oahu Community Correctional Center. As the chair, I'm gonna ask one of you to go ahead and make a motion involving Oahu Community Correctional Center as quickly.
So moved.
I think you have to read it.
You're going to read it?
Yeah, you have to literally read that.
Okay, I respectfully move to determine it's necessary to hold a limited meeting at the Oahu Community Correctional Center because the on-site inspection is necessary and public attendance is impracticable due to being a locked, secured facility, and public attendance is not allowed without official reason. That's in quotes, close quote. Also, due to facility-specific policies and procedures, it would not make applicable to have public attendance, and important to note that under any circumstance, without an official reason to visit the facility, it is not allowed.
Take a second.
Second.
Has been moved by Mike and seconded by Ron to determine that it is necessary to hold a limited meeting at the Oahu Community Correctional Center. Any discussion?
None.
Hearing none?
Okay.
I think you have to.
So I have to make a second
I think you have to discuss.
But what is there to discuss? I'm in favor of.
There has to be discussion, right, George?
Okay.
Why?
So, because you have to talk about why, even if it's the same, just, I know.
It's important for us to go into our community correctional center because of the our role as a commission,
Mhm.
that we not just be a board that sits here and talks about the facility, but that we're actually present in the facility, meeting the staff, meeting the population, and seeing for ourselves on whether or not the mission of the facility and public safety is being carried out. Yeah. So it's important that we be able to go into these facilities so that we can be as transparent as we can with the community, with each other, to say that we've been to where to our community correctional center, and what we are saying is based on what we see as well as what we hear from staff and community.
And in order for us to do our legislative mandate, we must be visiting the correctional facilities.
Yes.
And unfortunately, the public can't come.
And unfortunately, the public can't come.
Right, in
Okay.
these visits.
Right.
This is why we're going through these processes, to have these limited meetings.
Yeah. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say same. Motion carried. I'll call for the second motion for OCCC.
Okay, the second motion for Oahu Community Correctional Center. I respectfully move we waive the necessity for videotaping requirement because privacy issues for the people incarcerated in the facility and a sufficient reason for those who may be under jurisdiction of public safety.
Second,
Second.
Ron, it's been moved by Mike, that Oahu Community Correctional Center waive the necessity for videotaping. Seconded by Ron. Any discussion?
Certainly, when we go to this facility to videotape, we may be violating the privacy interests of the inmates there, because we go into the dormitories and other facility areas where they might have certain privacy matters.
And also, the facility does not allow videotaping.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say same. Any abstentions? Motion passed. Martha, can you do Kauai?
Okay. I have determined that it is necessary to hold a limited meeting at the Kauai Community Correctional Center because the on-site inspection is necessary and public attendance is impracticable due to it being a locked and secure facility, and public attendance is not allowed without official reason. Also, due to the facility's specific policies and procedures, it would not make applicable to have public attendance, and important to note that under any circumstances without an official reason to visit the facility, it is not allowed.
It's been moved that a limited meeting be held at the Kauai Community Correctional Center, and seconded by Mike Town. Any discussion?
It can't be not.
We just want to, reiterate how important it is for the commission to visit the neighbor islands, particularly Kauai and its jail, and to be able to review and assess their operations in accordance with Department of Public Safety policy, and to provide support and encouragement to whatever their needs may be.
And because it is a secured facility, the public is not able to attend.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say same. Motion carried.
Let me do that.
Second.
Second one.
I'm gonna read, the second motion on Kauai Community Correctional Center. The second motion for Kauai Community Correctional Center, I move that we waive the necessity for videotaping requirement because of privacy issues for the people incarcerated in the facility and is sufficient reason for those who may be under the jurisdiction of public safety.
Second.
It's been moved, that the visit to Kauai Community Correctional Center, that we waive the necessity for videotaping, second by Mike Town. Any further discussion?
Videotaping is also not allowed by the public safety policy.
And that areas that we may visit includes a private areas such as bathrooms and dormitories where they live.
And the infirmary, well, we certainly wouldn't want to be taping people.
Their identity as well.
Yeah.
No further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I,
All opposed say same. Motion carried. Ron, can you do the big island?
The Kauai.
Kauai
Kauai.
Community
Kauai.
Correctional Center.
William Kauai now. I move to determine that it is necessary to hold a limited meeting at the Hawaii Community Correctional Center because the on-site inspection is necessary and public attendance is impracticable due to it being a locked and secured facility, and public attendance is not allowed without official reason. Also, due to facility-specific policies and procedures, it would not make applicable to have public attendance, and important to note that under any circumstances, without an official reason to visit the facility, it is not allowed.
Martha, can you second?
I second that.
It's been moved by Ron Ibarra that we have a limited meeting at the Hawaii Community Correctional Center, and seconded by Martha. Any further discussion?
I find this visit is necessary for us to carry out our mandate and our responsibility.
And the public is not able to be with us because it's been a secured facility and public safety policies.
I think it's present with the pressing issues that we currently have found in our last visit to the Hawaii Community Correctional Center. It's important that we continue to have these opportunities to go into the facility and help and determine what else is needed in terms of assisting them in relieving the issues that we have come up with. With no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say same. Motion passed.
The second motion for Hawaii Community Correctional Center. I move that we waive the necessity for videotaping requirement because of privacy issues for the people incarcerated in the facility, and it is sufficient reason for those who may be under jurisdiction of public safety.
I second.
It's been moved by Ronald Ibarra that we waive the necessity for videotaping requirement at the Hawaii Community Correctional Center, and seconded by Martha Ternay. Any further discussion?
I think we covered it already when we spoke
No,
earlier
you
about
have
the.
Policy,
Yeah.
policy of public safety not to have video taping
No, I think when we responded.
within the facility.
Yeah,
Okay.
And the place that we will be visiting are private in nature, that is the dormitory, the bathrooms, and the infirmary, and like what also said, the privacy for the identity of the people incarcerated.
when the media goes there, which is very rare, but they often use stock video, but you'll notice they always, if it's not the back of an inmate, they always cover the inmate's face. They don't show them either.
With no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say same. Motion carried.
I respectfully move to determine it's necessary to hold a limited meeting at the Maui Community Correctional Center because the on-site inspection is necessary and public attendance is impracticable due to it being a locked, secure facility, and public attendance is not allowed without official reason. Also, due to facility-specific policies and procedures, it would not make applicable not be practical, will not be applicable to have public attendance, and important to note, under any circumstances without an official reason to visit that facility, and it's not allowed.
Second.
Second,
It's been moved by Mike Town for a limited meeting at the Maui Community Correctional Center and seconded by Martha Tornay. Any further discussion? Once again, with everything that's happening on Maui right now, it's also important for us, the commission, to become active in maintaining our relationship that we have began with Maui Community Correctional Center, visiting them and looking at the needs and the recommendations that we have and following up to see where they're at in moving their facility forward.
and this visit also allows us to comply with our mandate.
With no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say same. Motion passed.
Second motion for Maui Community Correctional Center. I respectfully move that we waive the necessity for videotaping requirement because privacy issues for the people incarcerated and the facility. There's a sufficient reason for those who may be under the jurisdiction of public safety.
Second,
It's been moved by Mike Town that we waive the necessity for videotaping at the Maui Community Correctional Center and seconded by Martha Tornay. Is there any further discussion? We want to remind everybody that the Department of Public Safety's policy on videotaping, no videotaping within the correctional facilities. And the privacy issues as we have
As we've
previously
already discussed.
discussed. Yeah. No further discussion. All in favor say aye.
aye.
All opposed say same. Motion passed. Martha, the women.
Okay, I move to determine that it is necessary to hold a limited meeting at the Women's Community Correctional Center because the on-site inspection is necessary and public attendance is impracticable due to it being a locked and secure facility, and public attendance is not allowed without official reason. Also, due to facility-specific policies and procedures, it would not make applicable to have public attendance, and important to note that under any circumstances without an official reason to visit the facility, it is not allowed.
Second.
It's been moved by Martha Tornay for a limited meeting at the Women's Community Correctional Center, seconded by Ronald Ibarra. Any discussion at this time?
Again, to allow us to carry out our mandate, we need to be visiting the correctional facilities.
I think it's important that at this time that we continue our relationship with the Women's Community Correctional Center, particularly when we're anticipating the movement of the women from OCCC to the facility, and that us commission going in and seeing and assuring that the transition has been working well, and whatever recommendations we can come in to support public safety in its convergence of all its women on the island overall.
Okay, the second motion for the Women's
No,
Community.
hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Without any further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say same. Motion passed. Go ahead, Martha.
The second motion for the Women's Community Correctional Center, I move that we waive the necessity for videotaping requirement because of privacy issues for the people incarcerated in the facility is sufficient reason for those who may be under the jurisdiction of the Department of Public Safety.
Second.
It's been moved that by Martha Tornay that we waive the necessity for videotaping requirement for visiting the Women's Community Correctional Community Center, seconded by Ronald Ibarra. Any further discussion?
Again, videotaping is not permitted by policy within the department.
Incorporating our previous arguments about privacy areas that we will be visiting regarding dormitories and bathrooms, as well as the identification of the inmates.
With no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say same. Motion passed. Ron, can you do Halava?
I move to determine that it is necessary to hold a limited meeting at the Halawa Correctional Facility because the on-site inspection is necessary and public attendance is impractical due to it being a locked and secured facility, and public attendance is not allowed without official reason. Also, due to facility-specific policies and procedures, it would not make applicable to have public attendance, and important to note, under any circumstances without an official reason to visit the facility, it is not allowed.
Second.
Second.
It's been moved by Ronald Ibarra that a limited meeting be held at the Halaba Correctional Facility and second by Mike Town. Any further discussion?
Again, it is necessary for us to visit Halava so that we can carry out our statutory mandate.
And it's impractical to have the public attend because it is a secured facility.
Without any further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say same. Motion passed.
The second motion for Halava Correctional Facility. I move that we waive the necessity for videotaping requirement because of privacy issues for the people incarcerated in the facility is sufficient reason for those who may be under jurisdiction of public safety.
Second.
It's been moved by Ronald Ibarra that we waive the necessity for videotaping for the Halaba Correctional Facility limited meeting. And seconded by Mike Town. Any further discussions?
For the same reasons we stated above, that there are privacy issues regarding the inmates as well as the areas that we visit. And there's
Public safety policy of no videotaping within the facilities. With no further discussions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say same. Motion passed. Kulani.
I respectfully move to determine it's necessary to hold a limited meeting at the Kulani Correctional Facility in the Big Island because the on-site inspection is necessary, public attendance is impracticable. Due to it being a locked and secure facility, public attendance is not allowed without official reason. Due to facility-specific policies and procedures, it would not make applicable to have public attendance, and important to note that under any circumstance without an official reason to visit the facility is not allowed.
Second.
It's been moved by Mike Town for a limited meeting at the Kulani Correctional Facility and seconded by Martha Tournay. Any further discussion? It's important for us as a commission to continue our relationship with the Kulani Correctional Facility and allow for another visit, a physical visit this year.
It also allows us to abide by our mandate to oversee the correctional facilities
And with no public attendance.
with no public attendance, yeah.
With no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say same. Motion carried. Yeah, the next.
Second motion for Kulani Correctional Facility. I respectfully move we waive the necessity for videotaping requirement because of privacy issues. For those people incarcerated in that facility, it's sufficient reason for those who may be under the jurisdiction of public safety.
Second.
It's been moved by Mike Town that we waive the necessity for videotaping at the Kulani Correctional Facility and seconded by Martha Tournay. All in favor?
Discussion.
Any
please.
discussion?
And the discussion includes that the Department of Public Safety has a policy not allowing videotaping.
And that the areas that we may visit includes privacy areas such as the bathrooms, dormitories, the infirmary, and the topics that we may be talking to the inmates about may be private also.
With no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say same. Motion carried. Martha Wyalba, please.
Okay, I move to determine that it's necessary to hold a limited meeting at the Waiala Correctional Facility because the on-site inspection is necessary and public attendance is impracticable due to it being a locked and secure facility, and public attendance is not allowed without official reason. Also, due to facility-specific policies and procedures, it would not make applicable to have public attendance, and important to note that under any circumstances without an official reason to visit the facility, it is not allowed.
Second.
It's been moved by Martha Tournay for a limited meeting at the Wyalba Correctional Facility and seconded by Mike Town. Any further discussions?
I believe this visit is necessary for us to comply with our mandate in statute. You're going to talk about relationships, Mark?
It's important that the commission continue to move forward as we begin our relationship with Wyalba today and continue to follow up with what we see, what their needs are, and continue to support them in their mission. Public attendance cannot be done at this time. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say same. Motion carried.
The second motion for I have a correctional facility, I move that we waive the necessity for videotaping requirement because of privacy issues for the people incarcerated in the facility is sufficient reason for those who may be under the jurisdiction of public safety.
Second.
It's been moved by Martha Tomei for waiving the necessity for videotaping requirement. And seconded by Mike Town. Any further discussion?
Videotaping is not allowed by policy of the Department of Public Safety.
And the areas that we will be visiting, such as dormitory, the bathrooms, the infirmary, are private areas, and some of the things that we will be discussing with the inmates may also be private.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say same. Motion
Same.
carried. Commissioner, I want to thank you very much for that, which was very lengthy. But as you know, we had a lot of issues when we tried to visit the first facility with the Office of Information and Practices, who pretty much oversee the commissions and the Sunshine Law. Yeah, and what you just heard and what we just went through is what the requirement is for us to cleanly go and visit these facilities as a commission. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, sure.
Good. Okay, so thank you for that, and we're all set for 2024 and the visits of these facilities. Okay,
Right.
now we're going to open up again, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being so patient for public comment. There was some ask in the chat. We're giving each speaker 3 minutes to discuss what they want to talk about. And this time, public comment can be on any item that you wish to share with the commission at this time. Kat, you have your hand up?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
Good morning, and thank you so much, commissioners. The first thing I wanted to say is that I sure hope the commission will support the solitary bill. As a tribute to Ted, this is the last bill he worked on, and it's based on the policies and procedures that he actually wrote in 2014. So the bill kind of tightens up stuff, but I really hope that you'll take a look at it and support it. Secondly, I want to thank Sophie for that amazing presentation. Also, what it highlighted is the importance of training, that we'll never have reform unless we actually look at the entire system. Everybody who lives and works there, the buildings, the environment that they work in, we have to look at the whole thing holistically. So thank you so much, Sophie, and thank you so much, commissioners. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and see ya.
Thank you,
Thanks, Kat.
Kat. Just looking for digital hands or signs, and anybody else?
Good morning.
Hi, Chad.
Go ahead, Chad.
Good morning, commissioners. Thank you for all the work that you're doing and for all the light that you're shedding in the dark corners that we may still have in public safety. I just wanted to make a comment on the wonderful presentation that we had, and also on some of the commissioners' visits that we're making, especially surrounding that issue that you were mentioning before, regarding programming that will get the inmate population out when the only thing that's keeping them there is lack of programming. We've been concerned about this for a decade as WorkNet, and what we've done is we've put together a way that we think is a solution to address some of the problems that we're having through a program called PChamp, which is actually a platform for service and training delivery that combines correspondence with Zoom training with live presentations. And we've been doing this now since COVID happened because it's a way for us to actually operate in spite of COVID. And it means that we can have our lessons and the learning sent to inmates through the mail. They can respond on answer sheets that we have, and then we can get them through training situations, even when COVID is present and lockdowns are happening. We targeted the locations of WCCC, Halava, and Wyava, because that's where the outward movement from our system actually occurs. In doing this, we have purposely asked to enroll those inmates in our programs who have requirements that they must meet in order to be released from prison. And we've worked closely with pre-parole officers and with the paroling authority also to see that we can qualify and have quality programming in those particular areas. And I must let you know that generally speaking, when we get referrals from any of these facilities, the referrals that we're getting usually provide us with waiting lists for these programs that far exceed the capacity, the normal capacity, I should say, of our system to provide these trainings. As an example, 12 people is normally the limit that we would have on therapeutic programming. But this time around at Halava, we're grieving to serve 20 people because there are more than 60 on a waiting list for this particular cognitive skills training program that we do. We can do that because we have 15 people enrolled in the classroom, but we have 5 others who are simultaneously enrolled in programs that are by correspondence, and they are still qualifying to get out. So we've been able to train over 200 people in this period between when COVID hit and and now. And I have to report to you something wonderful. Our last cohort that we had. Okay, yeah, let me say this and just be out of here. Our last cohort had a 100% completion rate from Halava. Even the people who left and went to the mainland, we were able to complete. So thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. And I would like to remain solution focused on these problems that public safety is experiencing.
Thank you, Chaz. Appreciate that. We were just having discussions on programming. Yeah, there are issues across the spectrum of the system about running the program, managing the program, and then what do they do while they're waiting for the program? It's not an easy solution at this point, but those are some of the recommendations that we're having and discussing as a commission, and we're looking for a recommendation for public safety. Thank you. Is there anyone else that wish to say anything? Seeing none, everyone, thank you for being with us for 2023. Commissioners, any other further questions or comments?
I just want to encourage the public, you can always contact the commission with other comments you want to submit or things that you think are important that we discussed. We are limiting now the comments to allow us to get through the meetings in a reasonable time, but we do want to hear from you.
Right.
And Carrie Ann, that's really important too, for you to share the ACLU proposals. Kat has already shared one with us.
Ron, any final words?
Well, nothing, thank you all and happy holidays and next meeting next year. Huh? See you folks next year.
Good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we want to wish you guys a safe holiday season, warm holiday season. It's been a great year. We've done a lot. This has been the first full complete year with staff. And we're looking forward to a lot of things next year, your continued support, and our work continues in laying a foundation for a system that we can be proud of as a community, as a commission, and as a state. So with that being said, aloha and have safe holidays. We all.